I am not a righteous man. I have always had a taste for wickedness, I fear. A gambler, a thief, a petty dealer, a con artist. I'm not exactly proud of it, but I go by many titles with many different professions. Hell, I'd tell you my name, but I'd have to list all of them. I blow from place to place, household to household, and bed to bed as I please. Well, until I have to leave. I take what I want, and I survive. No one truly gets hurt. They might be down a few grand or so, but in all fairness, they fell for cheap tricks. It's only fair, and they learn a valuable lesson. If it wasn't by me, it would have been by someone far worse. Human traffickers, gang members, loan sharks, the horrible list goes on and on ad nauseum. I've been around some truly horrible people. Being the scum of the earth, I know true evil when I see it. After a deal backfired in Arizona, my life was in severe jeopardy. Nasty, nasty business. So I packed up as quickly as I could and ran, like always. I drove until my piece of shit car left me stranded in some hillbilly mountain town, up in the sticks. A simple town, of simple people and simple ideas. This was the promised land for men like me, or so I thought. There's two types of locals, from what I've observed. Those who are sheepish around outsiders, and those who are friendly, too friendly for my liking. They were on the complete ends of the spectrum either way, with no in between. You'd be a fool to trust either. I've lived a life as a liar amongst liars, and a thief amongst thieves. I could smell the rot of this place miles away, beneath all the layers of southern hospitality and simple-minded charm. Speaking from experience, places like this always have a dark underbelly, disappearances, human trafficking, and other dealings. Now, which flavor of sin is this? Town's choice is a mystery so far. Maybe that's why I was stranded here. I don't know if I would say it was an act of God, if there is one, but there was something here that gave me an itch I needed to scratch no matter what. I managed to land a job as a mechanic at the dingy little auto repair store on the outskirts of the town. The owner, Artie Whalen, had a mouth on him and loved nothing more to gossip. A conspiracy theorist and overall loon, Artie would often go on hour-long rants about disappearances and odd happenings of the town. For a paranoid conspiracy theorist, Artie was uncharacteristically trusting to hire a man who just blew into town without a dollar to his name, almost immediately. He didn't believe in background checks, instead believing he could gauge a man's character by a glance. A fool, but an honest one. Most of what Artie would say was babble, him mistaking a plane for a UFO or claiming to have seen the Tennessee Wildman again. Though on occasion, he would actually make a little bit of sense. This here used to be Baptist country and the churches had full pews every Sunday, Artie said as he spit a putrid glob of chewing tobacco into the septic tank he called his dip cup. Until that Hollywood elite celebrity, Lion Lysander, blew into town with his fancy car and his gospel of Aaron all those years ago. Then all them churches dried up and died out in a span of a few weeks. Are you seeing the picture? A drought of honest, holy men in Baptist country. People losing faith in the chapels they've come to for generations in mass. That don't happen naturally, if you ask me. If you knew the disappearance statistics. So you think a washed-up geriatric rock star kidnapped all those people? I responded. Blind. So very, very blind. You aren't from around here, so I can forgive your ignorance. Melvin Schneitman, pastor of Anderson Creek Chapel, did disappear. The pastor of Little Sinai Church, Ben Crawford, died as well. Though listed as a suicide, I'm sure you can connect the dots. But oh, there's more. Trust me, brother. There's more. Andy Abernathy, pastor of the Eve Fall, gone, without a trace. Danny Melbrose, pastor of Mill Point Ministries, decided to mysteriously skip town, leaving a wife and 5 kids. I'd skip town too, though he ignored that comment. I could tell by the little twitch of his bright red mustache that Artie was not amused. List goes on and on and on. It feels like me and my buddy Emerson, you've met Emerson, remember, are the only ones seeing the dots. I have never met Emerson in my life, but I let him continue his rant. Those who oppose this Hollywood agenda are dealt with by the bull's horns. Oh, I just know he's pulling the strings. That's why every church in this area is either empty or dying out, while that giant church keeps gaining new members. Satan worship, probably. Not completely sure, though. My cousin Rutherford lives kinda close to that hell church, and he tells me all sorts of stories. When Artie rants, he gets a certain twinkle in his eye. Like what? I laughed, half expecting him to shrug his shoulders. Chanting and the like. Strange services held all through the night, from the earliest in the morning till the latest at night. Oh sure, they have the clean cookie-cutter services at reasonable hours. I tell you, if they try to mess with me, they have another thing coming. Artie snarled as he put a hand on the oversized, camo-patterned handgun, always at his hip. Artie was like a human cigarette, pale and thin, but I don't doubt if shit hits the fan he could use it. You think this little town could have a Waco situation? I chuckled, just to split hairs and rile him up. No, buddy. Waco was big government picking on the little guy. I know, pretty much for certain, that this Sinclair fella is probably backed by the government. They'll prey on our core values from the shadows. His name might as well be Rothschild, Clinton, or Bush. And another thing, sure, he looks like a recovering addict, but way younger than he ought to be. Adrenochrome. Look up adrenochrome. If I had to listen to another adrenochrome rant, I'd do Lysander's work for him and strangle Artie. Though I despised everyone in this nowhere town, I've grown to like Artie. He's good people. Just the hero of his own little story that he made up in his mind. He might be onto something, though. A big church that's unreasonably secluded, led by a former drug addict, has memberships to attend certain services, and goes off a religion that's splintered off from Christianity. The whole thing is just a blinking sign that screams cult in the biggest capital letters you've ever seen. And just like a divine intervention, a bright purple 1976 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, accented in a lavish gold, sped up to our lot for an oil change. The driver, a tall, handsome youth no older than 20, had a smug sneer and eyes looking for a fight. Standing around 6'4" and built like a linebacker, the man would have been imposing if not for his long, pretty curls and a thin mustache. No doubt every girl's dream. I doubt that he'd want that chiseled face of his banged up. Don't scratch the paint. He grimaced impudently, gesturing to a small borderline non-existent line on its paint job. The last mechanic did this travesty. See that you're careful with it. This ain't no schmuck's banged up car, it's the pastor's. I'd expect a little bit more humility from a pastor. Is he a pimp as well? I calmly smirked, eyeing up the gaudy car. Calling himself a pastor is humbler than you'll ever know, grease monkey. His gold rings glinted in the sun as his hands curled into a fist. Just speaking my mind, friend. It's a free country. Judging by that fancy car, you'd think he could afford a toupee with that comb-over of his. I can usually hold my tongue, but I know his type. Reckless, vicious, and violent, for no good reason but will cave when things don't go their way. People like him are easy to provoke. Whether he can actually back up this vitriol is a different story. I'd watch what we say, friend. And why's that? I'd prefer not to be talked down to by a pastor's escort. You have a sharp tongue, friend. I can show you something sharper. The youth cooed in the sweetest venom, flashing the knife in his pocket. Of course, its handle was gold and pearl. I consider heading on Sun. No need for this. Artie butted in, hand on his pistol. The frenzy in the boy's eyes never quite left, but he obviously knew he met his match. Getting back in the car with an exaggerated sigh. All a misunderstanding. I know the pastor would love to see y'all in a sermon, though. We have a special service at midnight tonight for members. You should stop by as my guests. It might enlighten the darkness in your life. Have a nice day, gentlemen. The escort called, every syllable dripping with pettiness and hatred, as he slowly drove off into the distance. That's Lane Vandross, Micah's boy, Artie said solemnly, his voice missing the usual gumption. Former football star, could have gone pro, a specimen through and through. Well, until the substance abuse ruined it all. He was put through the ringer. Lysander stuck his hooks in what was left. He's Lysander's creature now. The youth pastor at that damned church, actually. Artie continued. I almost thought he was about to cry. Has been football player and a has-been rock star. They're perfect for each other. I joked, but I could see that jab broke straight through Artie's heart. It's not funny. His father was a good man, and he was just a troubled boy. That pastor surrounds himself with handsome, broken youth, young men and women to be used as his makeshift groupies, calls them his young apostles. Makes me fucking sick, Artie yelped, and for a split second I could feel his sadness. Will he be back to start something with us? Lord knows. Seeing his boy like that, all doped and glammed up on that washed-up bastard's arm, it broke old Micah's heart, and his health went down after that. It killed him. An honest man dies, and an evil one gets richer. The way of the world, my friend. The way of the world. Artie choked up, walked inside to his office. He'll probably be in there a while. Curiosity killed the cat, as the old adage goes, though I've never quite grasped this concept. Will Lane try to stab me in some back room of the church? Will some cultists sacrifice me to their god? Or will they actually have a heartfelt service and move me through scripture? Maybe, possibly all three. Regardless, I am going to the church tonight. I can't exactly explain it, but I was always the kid who tried to open his Christmas gifts early. Nobody keeps secrets from me. I am the man of mystery, and I can tolerate no contenders. I must find out for myself what is wrong with this place, or die trying. A cold and foggy night, it was the perfect time for this, if not a bit cliché. I drove through the eerie, countryside roads for the longest 30 minutes of my life. Insanely curvy and poorly maintained. The winding back roads were almost like a rural purgatory. I'm lucky I didn't get lost within this hillbilly labyrinth, or plummet down a fenceless incline. With all its twists and turns, it felt like I was stuck in a loop, passing old dilapidated chapels and homes in ruin. I couldn't help but notice many of them were crudely boarded up. Crosses were seemingly torn from their steeples and signs, with these buildings being heavily defaced and ransacked. Come to think of it, I haven't seen a single cross in this entire town other than Artie's poorly faded Lion of Judah tattoo. Stranger still, poles ending in two curling prongs were placed in front of these buildings. In fact, these bidents were scattered all across the sides of the road, some crude and wooden, others of shining metal. They were like a twisted imitation of those roadside memorial crosses dedicated to fatal car accidents. Bows of golden cloth and yellow flowers accompanied many of these memorials. They weren't kidding when they called the Eternal Jubilee a bit secluded. The church was deep in the mountains, like the wicked heart of this area. Pulling up to the church fashionably late, I couldn't help but notice the size. I was a little disappointed. Truly it was massive, but everyone had made it seem like it was a looming monument. Big for the area, sure, but not the Bram Stoker castle that I was expecting. The sprawling parking lot was empty, except for a scant few cars. The golden bident symbol on its steeple looked almost like a bull's rack. I'm telling you, the longer I'm here, the more sense Artie makes, and that's terrifying. Entering the lobby, there were a handful of men guarding the doors. Many of them I've seen around the town. I pushed past them into the sanctuary. There were a few people in pews praying to themselves, or reading from their Gospel of Aaron, but nothing of note. "Excuse me, sir, we need to see your membership ID," one of the men said as he shook my hand, as friendly as can be. No need. I was invited by Lane Vandross for a special service. Now I know I showed up late, but it couldn't be over already. This doesn't look too special to me, I uttered with the most patronizing smile I could muster. The man's eyes furrowed and nodded slowly. A small, slimy smile took the place of the wide, friendly grin. Oh, so you're the one. Come with me. This service isn't held in the sanctuary. It is for the most faithful. Why Brother Lane would let in an outsider is beyond me. Your journey to salvation shouldn't start at this level. But he speaks with the pastor's interest, one of the men said, as a hand gripped my shoulder tightly and slowly pulled me out of the sanctuary. Through the maze-like hallways and down a flight of stairs, they took me to a corridor of many doors and fluorescent lighting, much humbler than the rest of the gaudy church. Producing a key, my chauffeur unlocked one of countless doors to reveal a large room. The strong, unmistakable miasma of sweat, wine, and perfume punched me right in the face. The door behind me slammed shut with the haunting sound of a lock. As the room was dimly lit, I could hardly comprehend what I was looking at. It was like a shifting mass of arms and legs. Countless men and women, all naked, embraced each other sensually in the erotic cluster of sweat and spit. A band of naked men, covering their faces in bulls' heads, played gilded instruments to an ominous melody. Serving women, their bodies wrapped in golden chains, poured a cloying wine on the participants as they began to chant. 6 naked men, each armed with knives, lined the walls and stood unsettlingly still. Their faces were obscured by the darkness, yet their athletic frames were as clear as day. They'd be quick, too quick for me. Standing tall and menacing, I could swear their flickering shadows looked like ancient hoplites. Crested and horned panoplies danced across the walls, only to wither back into mundane shade and shadow. Panic and fear can pollute the mind, playing all sorts of tricks, but I know what I saw. A troop of castrated men, all dressed as some sort of nymph or satyr, drunkenly danced around the congregation in a circle. Golden bands and circlets of thorns lined their arms and brows, with their legs contorted awkwardly by their hoofed stilts. Every movement had to be agony, yet they stomped, twirled, and gyrated wildly. Singing through slurred and painful hymns, an unending smile was plastered to each face. 4 older men were bound to podiums by gilded chains, each bearing an ornate lantern. Their eyes and mouths were covered by golden cloth, tightly wound around their heads. Laurel crowns rested upon their brows, and bullhorn codpieces covered their genitalia. Their fleshy, pale bodies were crisscrossed in many gruesome lashes and bite marks. Bobbing their heads slowly in tune with the beat, you could hear them faintly, yet joyfully humming to themselves. A serving woman, her nails long and sharply pointed, cruelly raked a terrible gash into one of the bound elders' abdomen. The man's painful howl blossomed into a gleeful purr as she pressed her finger deep into the wound. Dear God. Artie was right. I've seen a lot in my time, but nothing can accurately describe the pure disgust and fear I felt. I needed to keep calm. By God, keep calm. And from the darkness, Lane Vandross slinked forward, his nipples and navel pierced in gold. A strange necklace of golden coins rested in between the mighty horns of a bull obscenely tattooed to his chest. With a beautiful woman and a petite man on each arm, Lane blew a burning cloud of strange-smelling smoke into my face. Welcome to our jubilation, friend. What is this? I asked, quieter than a whisper. This is freedom, he responded as he squeezed the flesh of his 2 lovers. Everyone in this pit of sin went quiet and reared their heads to stare in my direction. Why show me this? Why bring me here? You are troubled. We were just like you until our souls were let free. Society and their false gods try to crush you beneath their heel, keep you weak and chained. Our God is liberation. He abhors normality and oppression. For he is a God of freedom and love. But don't worry, friend. The pastor will forgive your blasphemy, for he knows you. There has to be some kind of mistake. I'm not from here. I don't know any of you. I don't want any of this. I stammered, trying my best to hold my ground. Don't you wish to be free? Out there, they control everything. But here, we can do whatever we desire. For that is freedom. Lane asserted before delivering a hard punch to a bound elder's jaw. The older man went limp for a second, only to hum to the melody louder in a gracious haze. I tried to choke out a response, only for Lane's smile to grow greater. Gently rubbing his hand along his male lover's ear, Lane ripped his golden earring free without a second thought. For true freedom, nothing should be denied. Instinct is law, and every desire should be acted upon. This is the way of the bull. Are you bull or sheep, friend? Slave or master? I am a mechanic, a simple, nothing mechanic, I retorted, trying my best to locate another exit to no avail. But the pastor saw, he stuttered, almost like a confused child. Judging by Lane's cadence, his mind was muddled by some form of stimulant. Your pastor saw nothing. I am a mechanic, nothing more, nothing less. You are mistaken. I will never speak of this night again, I swear. Just let me go, I protested with the last drop of confidence I could muster. Then why come? Lane murmured, struggling to find his words through the thick brain fog as he put out his strange cigarette on the woman's arm. Without making any sound, the woman barely even winced. You could see a great sadness in her eyes, though, a sadness not even the thick veils of debauchery and intoxication could hide. I was curious, very curious about your religion. I don't know. I just wanted to see it for myself. It was a mistake. This is all a mistake. So I think it's time. My ramblings were interrupted by Lane's ghastly blare. It was a sickly, unnatural sound. More cackle than wheeze and more roar than cackle. I think it was a strained laugh. A rotting laugh of a boy who's been rotten to his very core. Almost stumbling over, Lane caught himself on his young male lover, viciously digging his long nails into the man's flesh. A dark trickle of blood now stained Lane's hand. Lane began to obscenely flick his tongue, rasping for air in between his labored giggles, bearing most of his weight down on his two petite lovers. It was evident that they were struggling to keep Lane upright. Where did that sharp tongue of yours go, friend? No joke? No remarks? I was at least hoping you'd be more amusing. Not so funny when there's no jackass with a gun protecting you, and the pastor sees something in you? A sad joke. You know what I see? Just a coward hiding in a brave man's shadow. While the smug smile never parted during his rant, Lane's eyes looked like he was about to cry. His mouth screamed of bravado and damnation, while his eyes whispered of doubt and sorrow. Lane, this was a mistake. I think you need to sit down. You don't seem well. Let's just calm down and talk this out, okay? Pity graced my voice for the first time in years. Artie was right. Again, Lane was just a boy turned into whatever this is. A mistake, a mistake, a mistake, a mistake. True enough. The arrogance to come here to mock us. I knew you were nothing from the start. Lane's telltale anger started to bubble with his ecstatic smile shrinking into a sour frown. Aggressively pushing aside the man and woman clinging to his impressive form, Lane yanked a small, shiny object from a podium. Flick, Lane Vandross, now with knife in hand, scuttled towards me. His movements were jittery, and his pupils heavily dilated. In that moment, he seemed anything but human. His drunken stupor had turned into a primitive rage, drooling all over himself with a beastly hiss. The tall, handsome man was gone, and a Neanderthal stood in his place. Thank you, Brother Lane. That will be enough. A high-pitched voice called out from the darkness. The leading musician removed his bull's head, revealing an older man with haunting green eyes and a silver-gold comb-over. His nails were lacquered in gold, with many bracelets, and rings gently clinking like a warning rattlesnake's tail. Descending from the stage, the servants draped a robe of golden snakeskin around his emaciated form. The congregation, groveling, tried to caress and kiss even the ground he walked on. Lysander Sinclair in the flesh, he's worse than I could ever imagine. Like the flick of a switch, Lane snapped out of his murderous daze. Throwing himself to Lysander's feet, Lane seemed deathly afraid of this little old man. Running his fingers gently through Lane's hair, Lysander then painfully yanked a handful of auburn hair from Lane's head before delicately kissing him on the cheek. "Still yourself, Brother Lane. We have a friend in our midst. Need we discuss hospitality again?" "No, Pastor." As Aaron cast the golden calf to his liking, so did the bull of the golden horns cast humanity to his liking. Man made God, and God made man. We are one. And pray tell, why do you run so, O man of many names? We are far from Arizona, child. Do you yearn for a true home? The older man asked, approaching me ever so slowly. "You know nothing about me." "Oh, the bull of the golden horns tells me many things. His muses come to me through dreams, ever since I was a little boy. I was always their favorite, giving me the prettiest of coins. You would fit right in with us. We will be your family. We will be your home." Lysander chimed, his voice almost like a songbird's. "Your manservant threatened to kill me." I squawked, half sob and half laughter. "I apologize for Brother Lane's brutishness. He invited you here with the intention of giving you to the rack, but I will not let that happen to you, friend." His tone was almost childish, always with that horrible melody. I was tired of running, tired of lying, tired of trying to survive. The only thing left was hate in my heart, true unbrindled hate for this scrawny old man talking down to me. I spit at him with the most disrespectful and disgusting glob I could cough up, coating his pristine robe in slime. "Go fuck yourself, old man. Do your worst, freaks." I spat defiantly again. Either way, I was probably going to be killed. If I die knowing I wounded his pride. "We were wrong about him, Pastor. He is beyond saving. Give him to me, and he will suffer greatly for that." Lane blustered, spinning around wildly. Lysander gave Lane a nasty backhanded blow. With his calm demeanor melting, Lysander seemed almost animal in that instant. "Wrong? Wrong! Do not presume to speak to me of what is wrong, boy. The muses speak through me. The bull speaks through me. Gods decide what is right and what is wrong. Do not forget who raised you up, boy. Now get out of my sight." Lysander screeched. The many rings of Lysander left unsightly marks upon Lane's cheek. Like a whipped dog, Lane slinked back into the darkness. Lysander's gaze focused back onto me, regaining that hideous, scarred smile. "I know what you are. You are lost, child, so very, very lost. Deep down, you're afraid of those beautiful flaws that make you, you. We made God, and God made us. We are divine. Your flaws are divine. Your desires are divine." "You know nothing about me? No one does? Not even your God?" Lysander cackled and began to sing an excerpt from "I Fought the Law" by The Clash, breaking rocks in the hot sun. "I fought the law, and the law won. I fought the law, and the law won. I needed money, 'cause I had none. I fought the law, and the law won." I was completely and utterly speechless. There was absolutely no way anyone could comprehend what was happening. It was like whiplash. The naked cultists continued to stare, almost entranced, deathly still surrounding the pastor. Producing a gold coin from his robe, the pastor smiled and gestured towards me obscenely. Unnaturally shiny, the coin was engraved with a bull on its head and a naked woman on its tail. "Can't make up your mind. You're a gambler, man of many names, a slave to chance like many of our herd. So I say, let fate decide by the flip of a coin. Heads, you walk free by the mercy of our God. Tails, I let Brother Lane do as he wishes. With a lackadaisical flip of his thumb, Lysander launched the coin into the air. All light seemed to be consumed by the coin's shimmer, concentrating into a blinding dot. Catching the coin with an audible thud, Lysander's grin widened and widened as his frantic eyes relaxed for a split second. My legs felt numb and my head pounded with dread. I have had a few brushes with death before, but nothing like this. You're free to go. We'll keep in touch. Brother Lane, do you mind showing our new friend out? See you next sermon. Man of many names.